Welcome back, first grade scholars. It's me, Mrs. Layton and Rattenborough, and we are here to present Animals and Habitats, Lesson 7, Animals of the Freshwater Habitat. Like we always start our lessons, let's preview today's vocabulary. The first word is amphibious. Please say amphibious with me. Amphibious, thank you. That means to be able to live on both land and in water. For example, our frog tank has areas of dry land and water for swimming because frogs are amphibious. Our second word is float. Please say float with me. Float, thank you. That means to stay or move slowly on top of the water without sinking underwater. For example, the children watched their toy boats float in the bathtub. Our next word is freshwater. Please say freshwater with me. Freshwater, thank you. That means water that is not salty. For example, every summer our family goes to a freshwater pond to swim. Our last word is gills. Please say gills with me. Gills, thank you, scholars. That is the part of the body that fish and other underwater animals use to breathe. For example, when we went to the aquarium, we saw the trout's large gills on the side of its body as it swam by. Please be listening and looking for these words as we present today's read aloud. Scholars, this illustration shows different freshwater habitats such as rivers, streams, lakes, and ponds. I'd like you to think of this question now. What sort of freshwater habitats do we have in our area? Go ahead and pause the video, answer that with someone around you today, and then restart the video. It is comprehension question time, scholars. You have two ways that you could do this. After you read the question, you can pause it and say the answer to someone around you today, or you can write the answer down and then compare the answers when you restart the video. Number 1, what are some examples of freshwater habitats? Some examples of freshwater habitats include rivers, streams, lakes, and ponds. Hello again! Glad you could join me. I thought that we needed a real change, so I've come off dry land to a place where it's wet all the time, a lake. A lake is an area of water that is surrounded by land. If something is surrounded by land, that means it has land all around it. There is a lot of water in the world. In fact, water covers most of the Earth's surface. But only a tiny part of the world's water is fresh water, the kind of water you and I can drink because it has very little salt in it. It is comprehension question time again, scholars. Number 2, is most of the Earth's water fresh water or salt water? Most of the Earth's water is salt water. Fresh water is found in streams, rivers, lakes, and ponds. The water in these streams, rivers, lakes, and ponds comes from rain and from melting ice and snow. Isn't it amazing to think that the water from your drinking fountain at school or from faucets in your house all come from rain? I'm here at the water's edge, or the water's side, to explore this lake and the plants and animals that call this freshwater habitat home. Freshwater habitats have many kinds of fish, birds, insects, and other animals. Standing here, I can see an enormous or very big leaf in the water. Let me climb onto it so that we can get a closer look. This is a water lily leaf. A water lily is a plant that lives in water near the edges of ponds and lakes. Plants are important in freshwater habitats because they make oxygen for animals to breathe. Plants are also food for the animals to eat, and they can provide shelter to protect animals from their predators. The leaves of the water lily are very large, round, and green, and they float on the surface of the water. The water lily is well adapted for living in this habitat. Like the kapok trees in the rainforest, the lily's large leaves let it get as much sunlight as it needs for food and energy. Lilies are also food for many animals, believe it or not. Animals like deer, porcupines, beavers, and turtles all eat the leaves, whereas ducks and geese like to eat the roots. Some animals, like fish and frogs, use the lily leaves as hiding places, and the flowers bring bees and other insects. I am going to float around the edge of the lake on this water lily leaf, but I'm going to have to leave soon because this pesky turtle will not leave my leaf alone. I've pushed out from the edge of the lake a little, and already I can see another kind of plant that lives here. It's called a cattail, and it gets its name from the unusual way it looks. Thankfully for me, it doesn't have to do much with real cats. Cattails have long, thin stems with foot-long, furry flower spikes at the top that turn from green in the early summer to brown in the fall. The flower spikes feel soft and furry and looks a little like a cat's tail, but I think it looks more like a hot dog. What do you think it looks like, scholars? The plants can reach up to 9 feet in height, which lets them get as much sunlight as they need. As with water lilies, some animals use cattails for food and shelter. Muskrats and geese like to eat the roots of the cattail, and the juicy green shoots are a favorite of moose and elk. Many kinds of birds make their homes among cattails. It's very hard to see anything in there because cattails grow so thickly, so it's a good place for birds to build their nests and to lay and hatch their eggs. Predators like snakes and frogs also live among the cattails and search for animals like birds and insects for food. I think I'm going to move on now. As you know, I'm not very good with snakes. It is that comprehension question time again, scholars. Number 3. What are some animals that live in freshwater habitats? Some animals that live in freshwater habitats include fish such as rainbow trout, birds such as ducks, insects such as dragonflies and mosquitoes, frogs, deer, porcupines, beavers, turtles, muskrats, and moose. Come with me beneath the water, and let's take a look at what's under there. Here are some nice-looking rainbow trout. Fish can only live in water, and they breathe underwater using gills on their sides of their bodies. Gills take in oxygen from the water around them. Fish have strong tails that they use for swimming, and fins that they use for steering and balance. The rainbow trout is a carnivore. Now remember, scholars, a carnivore is an animal that eats other animals. It eats other water animals like insects, other fish, and sometimes shellfish. It even eats some small land animals like mice if it gets a chance, so I'm sure it wouldn't mind a nibble of a rat. Rainbow trout like to live in rivers, but some prefer the deeper water of big lakes. I enjoyed exploring beneath the surface of the water, and now I'm going to rest on a lily pad again. While I'm drying off a bit, let me show you a kind of frog called a bullfrog that I can see sitting at the water's edge. Frogs are amphibious, which means they live in both water and on the land. Bullfrogs are the largest kind of frog found in North America, and they can grow more than ½ a foot long, or 6 inches, and weigh more than a pound. That's a really big frog. The bullfrog gets its name from the loud, cow-like noise it makes. I bet birds and turtles would be pretty surprised to know that a frog can make such a loud sound. Pretty neat, isn't it? This bullfrog is resting now, but it will come out to hunt when it gets dark. Bullfrogs eat a lot of different kinds of food. They are carnivores, so they eat small fish, snakes, birds, and insects like this dragonfly that's buzzing about my head. Adult dragonflies are flying insects with long bodies and wings. Dragonflies live around lakes, streams, and other freshwater habitats because they lay their eggs in water. Adult dragonflies eat other insects like mosquitoes, flies, and bees. The dragonfly uses its long wings to hover or stay in one place while flying around in the air where it catches its food. It has to be careful because the bullfrog isn't the only one that likes to eat dragonflies. Birds and turtles like to eat them too. Let's get ready for our next comprehension question. Number 4. How are dragonflies adapted to live in a freshwater habitat? Dragonflies lay their eggs in water. They eat insects that live in freshwater habitats, like mosquitoes and flies and bees. The water is getting a little rough out here. Ah, that's why. Here come some birds that like to eat insects. These are a kind of duck called mallards. Ducks are birds and can live both in and out of the water, but it's the water where they spend most of their time. Like all birds, ducks, like these mallards pictured here, are covered in feathers. Did you know that ducks' feathers are waterproof? Ducks rub special oil from their tails all over their feathers because oil and water don't mix. Water drips right off the ducks without getting their feathers wet. Ducks float on the surface of the water and have large webbed feet to help them paddle. They dip their heads under the water and use their beaks, which are called bills, to search for food at the bottom of the lake. Now, bills is a multiple meaning word. In this case, it's referring to our duck's beak, but the word bills can also refer to pieces of paper money. Mallards like to eat grasses and seeds from plants and small animals like insects, worms, snails, frogs, and small fish. Well, we've had a good look around this freshwater habitat, but I have to get off this lily leaf before these ducks knock me off. There's another kind of water habitat, and we're going to have a good look at it next time. I hope you'll join me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to start my long trip back to shore. Have a great day. Here is our final comprehension question time. Number 5. What carnivores did you learn about today that live in freshwater habitats? What is the omnivore that you learned about today? And what is a nocturnal animal that lives in freshwater habitats? Carnivore animals in the freshwater habitat include rainbow trout and bullfrogs. Mallard ducks are the omnivore animal from today's Read Aloud. And bullfrogs are nocturnal animals that live in the freshwater habitat.